The United States enjoys an unprecedented AAA credit rating, which allows us to borrow money more cheaply. Most recently, a Moody Investor Services quarterly report suggested that the U.S. needed to make significant improvements to avoid downgrading its credit status. The report noted that, quote, preserving debt affordability will invariably require fiscal adjustments of a magnitude that in some cases will test social cohesion, end of quote. Pretty strong. What do you think?
I agree with all of you who say today, said in the past, say in the future, that our deficits are unsustainable. And it is very important that the American people understand that if you care about long-term growth, if you care about opportunity, if you care about future growth and income, how strong our economy is, we need to make sure that we are working together to lay out a path to bring those deficits down. It is important not just for the long run, it's important now, because our capacity to make sure we're reinforcing this expansion, to make targeted additional investments in infrastructure, in helping small businesses, those things only work if they're done in a framework that produces confidence we can restore gravity to our fiscal position over time. So all of you who emphasize this problem are right to emphasize it. You're absolutely right. But those objectives are not in conflict today. If you care about a long-term fiscal position, which we all do, you have to care a lot about getting this economy back on track, repairing the damage caused by the recession, make sure we are growing again with growth led by the private sector. Well, if we don't achieve that, then our long-term fiscal problems will be much more difficult to solve.
Let me interrupt you a second. The key determiner of credit rating is the percentage of debt to revenue. Agreed?
Well, I would say it this way, Congressman. What people who look at our country, credit rating agencies, investors, Americans, what they look at is whether we have the political will to restore gravity to our fiscal position over time.
You're exactly right, and your budget proposes a record $1.6 trillion in deficit spending. I don't think Moody's is going to like that.
No, what the deficit does is, what the President's budget does is propose to bring down a deficit at exceptionally high levels we started with, dramatically over the next 4 to 5 years, to cut it dramatically as a share of the economy as a whole, to reduce it to below 4% of GDP in a relatively short period of time. Now, we can only propose. Congress has to enact those changes. But if Congress were to act on those changes, you would bring about a dramatic, necessary, important improvement in our fiscal position. Now, that will not solve all our problems, because we still face long-term unsustainable growth in the commitments of the government, and that's why we need health care reform, other sets of changes to make sure we restore sustainability to our fiscal position. But again, I just want to underscore what you began with, which is it is very important for people on both sides of the aisle to say what you're saying today, which is deficits matter, tax cuts aren't free, we have to pay for the things we do as a government, and we have to recognize that our long-term growth requires that we restore balance to our fiscal position.
Well, if we lose our credit rating or it jumps down to the next level, what does that mean? We have to pay higher interest rates to borrow money?
Oh, absolutely, but there's no way that's going to happen, Congressman. There's not a chance that's going to happen to this country. But it is very important for people to recognize that, again, future growth will be weaker. This expansion, this recovery will be weaker if we don't do a better job together over time of demonstrating that we're going to have the political will to make some tough choices. And that's why the Fiscal Commission is so important, because that brings Democrats and Republicans together, asks them to step back from politics of the moment and to propose changes to our policies that allow us to go back to living within our means.
Moody also says that debt service costs are projected to be higher in 2013 than in any other AAA-rated government, Germany, UK, Spain, and France, by 2013. So aren't we walking a pretty tight line here about losing our credit rating?
Congressman, again, I would say it this way. This is completely within our capacity as a country to solve. The President laid out as a path to get us almost all the way there, to get us below 4% of GDP. We have to act on that for that to work. We have to enact it. This is within our capacity to solve. It just requires that we work together to find some political will to make those choices.
Well, the political will in the budget that has been submitted projects a $1.6 trillion deficit for 1 year, and also the freeze that has been proposed from the administration only applies to about 10 to 15% of our spending. You're only freezing a tiny piece of the overall spending.